and play on 2nd and 10. That's his youth right there.
Tagovailoa trying to make up for it. Fires to the end zone. Touchdown! Alabama wins!
So today I'll be continuing my college football schedule preview and point spread prediction videos with the Florida Gators. So Florida will have 5 different conference opponents this year than last year. Last year they played LSU, Texas A&M, Mississippi State, and Tennessee. And instead this year they will play Auburn, Missouri, South Carolina, Oklahoma, and Vanderbilt. And I think that makes the conference schedule easier than last year because of Oklahoma is probably going to be the best of the 5 new conference opponents. But just playing them is easier than playing both LSU and Texas A&M. And Florida's non-conference schedule is much easier than last year because last year they played Miami and South Florida. And their schedule starts out nicely with what will be 2 guaranteed non-conference wins against Florida Atlantic, who's a terrible group of 5 team, and some FCS team called Campbell. Now, Florida does play their in-state rival Florida State on the road, but this will be as close to a guaranteed win for Florida as it can get. If Florida were to lose to Florida State this year, then John Sumrall is probably not the right coach for them because I don't even think Mike Norvell will be coaching Florida State in this game. And if he is, he won't be coaching them the day after it. As soon as Florida State can come up with enough money to pay his buyout, they will be firing Mike Norvell. But the good news for Florida is they have a 1-year head start on Florida State when it comes to starting over, assuming that John Sumrall is the right coach for them. And as big of a dump as Florida became under Billy Napier, not even Sumrall is taking over as big of a dump as whoever replaces Norvell at Florida State will be taking over. And this is an interesting conference opener on the road at Auburn because these are similar teams. Neither one has been any good recently, and they both bring in big name coaches from the group of 5 level to try to rebuild their programs. And personally, I'm a little higher on John Sumrall than I am Alex Golesh because I think Sumrall is a little more focused on the line of scrimmage than Golesh is. I think of Alex Golesh as a great offensive coach, but not as much of a head coach. While I think of John Sumrall as not really being an expert at coaching either side of the ball, but a good line of scrimmage coach and a good head coach. And I am going to go ahead and say that I don't think Florida or Auburn is making the college football playoff in at 2026, but I do think one of these 2 teams is going to have a big improvement from where they were at in 2025 in 2026, and I think whoever wins this game is going to be that team. I think this game is going to be a big momentum boost for the winner of it, and uh, the loser of this game, I think, is going to go on to have I won't say a bad season, but not as improved of a season as they're hoping for. And you probably think that Florida's getting a perfect time for a bye week with it coming in between on the road at Texas and a neutral site game against Georgia, because that's about as tough a 2-game stretch as you could have. But I don't think so because Georgia's the game I would give Florida the least chance of winning on this schedule. I'd give them close to a 0% chance of winning that one. So the Georgia game won't be played in Jacksonville, Florida, where it normally is. It'll be played in Atlanta because there's construction going on at that stadium in Jacksonville, Florida. But if anything, that will help out Georgia. Georgia, Oklahoma is by far the toughest two-game stretch on the schedule that they don't get a bye week in between. Florida, I think, will pull off one big upset win in 2026. Most likely a home win against either Ole Miss or Oklahoma because Florida's stadium is large. It's got a capacity of over 88,000, and it's one of the loudest stadiums in the country. And Florida's last two games against Kentucky and Vanderbilt, I think for John Sumrall to not feel any heat of the hot seat going into 2027 is going to have to find a way to win both of those. And Florida will have three permanent opponents, Georgia, South Carolina, and Kentucky. And of course, it's no surprise that they got Georgia because Georgia's, I think, an even bigger rival to Florida than Florida State is. But it is surprising that they didn't get the LSU as one of them. But Kentucky and Vanderbilt are historically the two worst programs in the SEC, and Florida has historically dominated the Kentucky series, at one time winning 31 meetings in a row with Kentucky. Now, Kentucky has kind of had Florida's number recently, winning four out of the last five meetings with them, but Summerall is going to have to get that turned around, I think, for him to last at Florida in the long run. And Vanderbilt, Florida has dominated them historically too, winning 31 out of the last 33 meetings with them, and at one time winning 22 straight meetings with Vanderbilt. And well, I know Vanderbilt had a much better team than Florida did last year, and I do like Clark Lee at Vanderbilt. They were good last year because of that amazing offense. I don't like their defense, and Vanderbilt's going to be starting a true freshman quarterback uh, this year. I think Summerall's going to have to continue the Florida dominance in that Vanderbilt series for him to last at Florida in the long run. If there is a minus at the beginning of the spread, that means that Florida is the favorite. If there's a plus at the beginning of the spread, that means that they're the underdog. A 20 plus spread is a blowout, and there's two of those, Florida Atlantic and Campbell. A 6 to 9 spread is close, but they'll be a clear favorite. And there's three of those, Texas, Georgia, and Florida State. A 1 to 5 spread means it's almost a complete toss up, and there's seven of those, Auburn, Ole Miss, Missouri, South Carolina, Oklahoma, Kentucky, and Vanderbilt. So if I had to guess the exact spreads for these games right now, I'd say Florida will be about a 30-point favorite over Florida Atlantic, and at least a 40-point favorite over Campbell, probably even more than that. And I'd say Florida will be a 3-point underdog to Auburn, but only because it's on the road. At home, that would be the other way around, and I'd say Florida will be a 3-point underdog to Ole Miss because it's at home. On the road, that would be in the 6 to 9 range, and I'll say Florida will be a 3-point underdog to Missouri, but only because it's on the road. At home, I think Florida would be a slight favorite, and then I'd say Florida will be a 3-point favorite over South Carolina because it's at home. On the road, I think they'd be a slight underdog. And I'd say Florida will be a 8 or 9 point underdog to Texas. And That's only in the 6 to 9 range because Florida beat Texas last year. Otherwise, that would be in the 10 to 19 range. And I still wouldn't be surprised if when it comes time for this game to be played, if Texas is a double-digit favorite over Florida. And Georgia, because it's a rivalry that's in the 6 to 9 range, I'll say Georgia will be a 7 point favorite in that one. But I wouldn't be surprised either if, when it comes time for this one to be played, if Georgia's a double-digit favorite over Florida. And I'll say Florida will be a 3 point underdog to Oklahoma because it's at home. On the road, that'd be in the 6 to 9 range. And I'll say Florida will be favored by like a point over Kentucky and like 3 points against Vanderbilt. And I'll say Florida will be favored by 7 against Florida State. So that'll be it with this video. Please subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll be back soon.